Hello, and welcome to Paranormal Chronicles. I'm your host, Joe Miranda. Today's episode is Just Showing Off. Before we go any further, I just want to state that I am a flawed man and I'm a sinner. I believe in God and give Him all the glory. I believe Jesus Christ is my Savior, and I renounce Satan. However, I do not underestimate his ability to blind minds, eyes, ears, and hearts here on earth. So, the 5th of October, 2017. I had gotten home from work and I am eating dinner. I'm watching an old episode of Hawaii Five-0 back from the series in the 60s, not the current show that's on TV. It's about 6:30 at night, and all of a sudden, my fan light went out as I'm sitting there eating my dinner. So, being a single guy, I've got my TV tray out and I'm, just doing my thing, and the fan light went out. Now, the fan light had gone out the day before, and on the 5th, October 5th, it went out again. And so I followed the prompting or the impression to get out my cell phone and start filming. Now, interesting thing about that particular area is that is where the entrance portal was in my condo. So there were a lot of paranormal events, some videos, some very interesting things that I'll show in future episodes that took place right there in that general vicinity. Now, I had been planning on doing the episode about the fan light going off, and I looked in my journal. Right above that entry was the events that took place on October 1, the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting on the Las Vegas Strip. I have some other interesting events that took place that I believe correspond to that, but for today's episode, we're going to focus on the fact that the living room light went out. Now, when I looked in the entry in the journal, I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't gone back and read the entry, but I noticed there's an interesting connection to a number of events that took place that I've documented in my journal. And Jesus rose on the third day after his death. And I do have instances in the journal of smoke detectors in that condo chirping. And there are some connections with a third day of somebody passing. So I didn't make the connection back in 2017. Of course, these events hadn't taken place yet, so I didn't have any data to work with, have any entries to work with at that point. So now I'm making the connection to that. I also have videos that I shot where the smoke detector was going off, and I went up, took the battery out, and it's also hot wired into the unit. I believe that's per code in Nevada. But the smoke detector was hardwired into the electric system, and it had a battery backup. And when I would take the batteries down, I did the research. A 9-volt battery is not bad until it's under 7 volts typically. And I took these batteries out on numerous occasions, and 8.1, 7.9, 8.3, 8.5, 8.9. So something was causing the draw on those smoke detectors. Well, same thing with that fan light. So what I found very interesting as I'm taking the video, I'm watching Hawaii Five-O episode. And I sat back down in front of my TV tray, and the whole time the video is going on, and I'm going to upload it for this episode. You can see for yourself. You can hear the background noise of the episode. You can hear tires screeching. You can hear music. And as I sat down, I said, okay, so the light switch is over there, which was, I don't know, probably a good 6-7 feet away from me. And I said, let's see if it'll do it again. And just as the music in the scene came to a crescendo, the light flashed like 3 times. Can't time that. Couldn't time it with the music for sure. That was playing on Me TV, or the Y5 episode that was airing on Me TV that day. And it was shocking because it did it on command. And to me, the entity was acknowledging, yeah, I'm here and I hear you. I don't know any other way to take that. I mean, that's empirical data. So, you know, I caught it on film, and I've shown it to a number of people, and everybody that sees it is blown away by it. I'm blown away by it myself. Now, prior to the Route 91 shooting, a few hours before that, and that's how I'm making the connection now, I was talking with my neighbor, and the way the condominium complex was that I lived in, the garages were across from each other, separated by, a driving lane big enough for a vehicle to pull out or back in to the garage. It wasn't a carport, it was a garage. And I remember coming home. I believe I was at the driving range or the golf course that day, and I came home around 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there. And I saw my neighbor, and every time we'd see each other, if we weren't both in a hurry, we'd converse for 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes, but we would just talk about things. And that night, I remember somehow we were talking about the Las Vegas Strip, and I don't know if he had mentioned something about the concert going on down on the Strip, but we were talking about the Strip, and I said, I don't usually go downtown, and walk around the Strip anymore, because it was probably about 12, 13 years earlier, maybe 14 years earlier, Um, I was uh, down on the strip. I'd gone to a club, uh, uh, and after the club, the gal that I had gone out with, we went to the Fat Burger on the strip. That's a plug for Fat Burger. I love the place. Anyway, um, we as we were coming out after we had finished eating, I was holding the door open for her, and just as she's stepping out, there were gunshots that flew over our head. Uh, there had been a some type of altercation. There was McDonald's maybe 200-300 feet down that little strip stretch that had the Fat Burger and the McDonald's. And I grabbed a hold of her, and there just happened to be a car parked along the sidewalk there. And we ducked in down behind it. I remember a security guard came, you know, uh, came not crawling, but squat walking towards us, had his weapon drawn. And, um, I asked him if he had a backup piece. He said no. And I made it a point after that to get my concealed carry permit in Nevada. But long story short, that made quite an impression upon me. And I kind of took a lot of the allure out of going down on the strip for me. When I first moved there years ago, back in '85, it was a different town. But anyway, that was how the conversation went. I told him the story. And the next morning, we usually left for work around the same time. I saw my neighbor, and he was freaked out. He said, I can't believe what happened on the strip last night. And I hadn't heard about the shooting. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, dude, I'm freaking out. Because you and I were just talking last night about how dangerous the strip was. He said that there were 50 people shot and killed on the strip last night. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, no, you didn't hear it. I said, no, I don't really watch the local news. I watch a lot of YouTube, but that's about it. But I hadn't turned on the TV when I was getting ready. I just got ready and I left for work. And he said, yeah, he said it was bad. He goes, the strip is still closed down. So, that was quite shocking. So I go into work. I work down towards Henderson. So I wasn't affected really by the strip being shut down. I get into work. The owner of the Sun, of the company I worked for, I was told he wasn't going to be in today. In fact, he probably wouldn't come in for the next couple days. And I asked why, and one of the other sales people there, she told me, she goes, Andrew was at the concert, the Route 91 Harvest Festival concert last night. And of course, I asked if he was okay, and I was told he was, but he was there with his girlfriend, and that's about all that she knew. But he wasn't going to be coming in for the next couple of days or so. So, I believe he came in either later that week or the beginning of the next week, and he told us what happened. It was pretty horrifying. Him and his girlfriend were there. Everybody was having a good time, and he said the shots just started ringing out, and him and his girlfriend, they dove behind a table that was knocked over or pulled over, and they actually, to get the safety, because they were in a bad spot, I guess, from what he was describing. They could hear the shots firing over top of them, going over top. They could hear the bullets. And him and his girlfriend had crawl over the dead and the dying to get to safety. But eventually they did. And I mean, um, it it definitely affected him. Obviously, you could only imagine. But um, one of the strange things about all that is a few months earlier, the one sales gal that I was talking about, you know, she was in the paranormal as well, and the one day we were having a conversation about reincarnation, and I had an impression, and I told the boss's son, hey, you know, the impression I'm getting is that um, you were around a long time ago, and you're kind of like a greaser kind of guy. You were a young teenager, but then I got the impression that he had been in a car crash in 1959. Um, and that he didn't survive. And he kind of chuckled about it because I don't believe in that stuff. I just don't believe in it. Um, but the impression was very strong. It was very clear to me. And I think at that time, he was maybe 23 or 24. I don't think he was any older than 25. He was a young guy. And I mean, the shooting hit him hard, and um, another strange thing about that whole deal is within a couple month period, he had gone through the shooting, um, survived that, and then he was in two two accidents um, within a short period of time, and you know he was really it was coming at him fast and hard. I mean, I felt so bad for this young guy that, and I told him I feel horrible for you. But things will get better for you. And um, you know, as a side note to the Route uh, 91 shooting, there was a couple from California that um, had survived the shooting together, and 2 weeks later, they both perished in an automobile accident when they were in California. And as I'm researching this, um, the daughter said in an article that after the shooting, she says she thought they were more in love than she had ever seen them. And she said within the last 20 years, and that they really had strengthened their relationship, and she was, you know, sharing that her husband or her father had brought uh, flowers or roses to the wife the one day to cheer her up, and that in some way, even though her parents had passed, I think that she found a lot of comfort in knowing that her parents had really reconnected. And I, you know, as someone whose parents were married for 40 years and knew that they loved each other, and I was here because they loved each other, I could understand how that could really impact the daughter, um, and that she could get comfort in that, in knowing how much her parents loved each other. So another thing I want to share again, um, it's been my experience, or I've noticed that just like before a poltergeist event, it seems to build up. And it's not just before the actual event, things just seem to happen in a flurry. Kind of like, well, exactly like how I'm explaining um, all the dots that connect with the light flickering, catching it on video. Um, beforehand, the Route 91 shooting, I believe it was an entity now potentially that was reaching out um, from that event. There's going to be people that are going to say, "Well, how do you make that connection?" That's a pretty big leap. Well, I've done other investigations, and I did an investigation I'll talk about another time in the Luxor Hotel. And from where I was doing that investigation, you could look right across and see if we'd have been there the night of the Route 61 shooting, uh, we would have had been able to see clearly the perpetrator shooting from the room that was across at the Mandalay Bay, shooting down, well, on the camera, this way down towards the concert. So from my vantage point in the Luxor, it would have came from the shooting would have came and gone down towards the concert from my right to left and up 32 floors down into the concert, or this way, going that way from the camera perspective. So and I we were doing a SLS camera investigation and a spirit box investigation. There were some things that were seen and heard. So I'll leave it at that, but I'll revisit that, God willing, in another video. But getting back to these events just building up and building up and building up, as in a poltergeist event, these dots connect with the fan light flickering on and off, going back to the events of 10/1, because the light actually flickered on the 4th of October, and the video was the 5th. So another event that just recently happened, I was talking with my colleague, actually the gentleman who inspired me to start the podcast. And I was talking to him, and I just, was finishing up my work for the day, and I just mentioned to him that, hey, I'm going to be doing the episode on just showing off. And we spoke for a couple minutes about it, and then when we hung up, my work computer, I was using my computer telephone number to call out, or actually take the call in. And on the screen, it showed that the time had stopped, but the call didn't hang up or didn't disappear off the screen. It just locked in on my screen. And even minutes later, it was still up, and I couldn't get it to come off the screen. And it was blocking other content. And I took a photo of it and up, on my phone. I thought it was strange, but I do document these things that I believe potentially could be paranormal. So I have a record of it. Then I took a video, short video. Then I tried to upload a phone record of a previous call that I made, and I document these calls as part of the record for the accounts that I'm working on. I went to try to save it. It just froze up. You get that on the screen, it'll just sit there and circle It depends on the type of emblem or how it shows up, but it was just sitting there just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. I've been using this CRM platform for years. Never did that ever before. So again, just like in poltergeist events, these events, they just continue on. They add up. Everything adds up. The dots connect. I actually, uploaded that video and documented it in my journal as well. Now, I know with this particular video, there's a lot to unpack. But eventually, as I was told years ago when I started keeping the journal, eventually the dots connect. Well, the light went out again. For no reason. Eating dinner again. 6:23. Well, the light switch is over there. So we'll just see if... See if it comes on by itself again. There it goes.